Hello there, my friends. This is Emily Craig, and it is Sunday, the 15th of December, 2019. And what is becoming more and more apparent as time goes on, particularly in the YouTube environment, where there is a big controversy over how we address children, how we talk to our children, what we allow our children to have access to, what we are allowed to intervene in our children's lives to keep them as we feel is safe. And what I've been watching over the past 20 years is this divide that has been created by somebody to make the young people the movers and shakers in our society, like this Gretchen girl from, I'm not sure where, I guess in Germany or Austria, who's 16 years old. Oh, we've betrayed her generation. Okay. And when I was growing up, I had to sit through the movie On the Beach, right? And I had to sit through movies that reviewed the Korean War. And there were a sequence of movies that were talking about atomic wars. And there was the Cold War, right? And so in the 50s, we were subject to a barrage of fears about the future. When I was in high school, I was literally afraid that I would never have an opportunity to grow up and have a family. That was the atmosphere in which those of us who were in high school in the late 50s and early 60s, and this is why at UC Berkeley, I got there in 1960, I just stayed a year, but that's when the free speech movement in Berkeley occurred, with the younger generation thumbing their nose at the older generation saying, you're repressing us too much. All right. But the tactics and the strategies of the left have not served to promote peace. If you have read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, if you have read the Frankfurt School, if you have read the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, if you have read Albert Pike's directive to stage 3 world wars, if you have read about the Milner kindergarten and the Fabian group, and on and on and on, what you find out is that the left has had the tactic and the mission to simply destroy and eviscerate the civil society that existed to allow the children to come up with something new, because there's nothing new under the sun. All right? And so the schools have been dumbed down since 1880, when Horace Mann destroyed the one-room school where the older kids taught the younger kids, and where everybody had to know how to read and write legibly in longhand and figure in their heads. They didn't have calculators. They made change automatically without having to refer to some kind of electronic gadget to know how to return change. Okay, and gradually, the younger generation has become stupider and stupider and stupider. And so today, now mind you, I'm in California in the United States, and other countries have different experience. But in the United States, when I approach children on the street, they don't even look at me. And every once in a while, one will look up and I'll say, good morning, and they'll comply. They'll speak to me the way they would speak to a teacher, but I'm nobody. I might as well be a tree or a blade of grass. because in the Common Core curriculum, the only group that's important is your peer group, and the culture of your elders and the culture of your family has just simply been dismissed. And so there's no continuity between the generations. And I noticed this very keenly because I grew up in a large European, Ukrainian, Russian foster family that there were 6 in the generation of great aunts and uncles. There were 13 in my mother's generation, 13 in my generation. The family was dying out. But they always got together on holidays and weekends, and they were a family. They knew how to be a family. They knew how to be a family. And recently I've been watching videos about cultures that still know how to be a family. The Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn know how to be a family. The Amish in Pennsylvania, the Hutterites and Mennonites and 12 tribes stay very, very close, but they have these walls around their ideation so that they don't associate with anybody else. Now, there are churches in Christendom which hold to a standard of behavior. You know, families used to hold to a standard of behavior. And the standard behavior was usually in their Bible, okay? They had rules, and every family had a Bible, and they kept the family genealogy in the Bible, and they learned how to read in the Bible, and the Bible says, okay, do not kill, do not steal, do not covet, do not curse. The Bible has rules for behavior that if you follow them, you get a good outcome, okay? Things work out for you if you follow them. If you follow Proverbs and what Jesus had to say about getting along with people in Matthew chapter, in the whole book of Matthew, okay? I learned that from a child. If you follow the book of Matthew, you'll know how to get along with people because you'll do what you say what you do, and you'll follow the golden rule, okay? And he who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much. There are all kinds of heuristics and rules of thumb in the Bible that simply work. And the story's beside the point, okay? The doctrines are beside the point. What's important about the Bible, it has good, wise rules for people just getting along. And we did for a long time. But quackademia has been discounting and demeaning any kind of spiritual organization or spiritual discipline under the name of secular materialism, in which humanity somehow popped out of simians and hominids, and we have no history older than 6,000 years, and every time we archaeologists discover a city buried in mud or a city buried underwater or a ruin of another city, they're so amazed. They're so surprised because they've never read the Bible history about resets. They've never read the cuneiform tablets of Sumer. They've never read the Urantia book or the Oahspe, or I understand you can get an English translation of the Siri Guru Granth Sahib of the Sikhs, but it's better than what you're going to get at the university. The universities are teaching a form of history that says that humans are nothing but animals, and they will never know how to do anything other than what they are required by rules and laws to do. And so as a result, over the last 20 5 years since I graduated with my master's degree from George Mason University, what I have noticed is that the generations, the children and the grandchildren, have become more and more and more distant because political correctness is a big issue in family now. If you don't have the correct worldview, and my kids have used that to talk to me, Mother, we have a problem with your worldview, they won't have anything to do with you. And that is what the New World Order has done, is atomize and disperse us so that each individual is required and confined to confronting the state as a single individual, surveilled to the maximum, with a record that no one has ever validated or verified. We all have records going back to birth, going through our schooling, going through our employment. We have never been given the opportunity to examine those records to see whether those records were true. But every option and opportunity that occurs or is created now is a reflection of the records that were kept by people who didn't know us in the past. Can you see what this has done to the continuity of civil society? It has destroyed it. It has wrecked it. And the generations no longer know each other. The grandchildren don't know the parents, and the parents don't know the grandparents. In many, many families, particularly those families that are affected by social services in some way. I was affected by social services because I was a foster kid and adoptee. And at 75 years of age, I still cannot validate and verify when and where I was born, because the records were forged when I was placed in the foster care child trafficking network. All right. Now, particularly in the UK now, and in Australia, parents are grieving and complaining that it is not safe to have children because the state finds specious arguments to remove children from their loving families in order to sell them. All right? So we are facing abductions by the state, abductions that are never explained. All right. We are experiencing the loss of our families and the loss of our sense of community and the loss of trust. Now, how do we recoup this? I'm thinking that the internet is a tool that we who crave to be in relationship again might use in order to create a new coherent family. I'm not sure how we're going to do it yet, but what I've noticed over 25 years of being online is there is a group of people whose way of thinking is not unlike mine, and we kind of hang out together online, and maybe we can do something. You know, on Saturdays, I do an hour presentation on People's Internet Radio in Dublin, Ireland, and also in React TV in Jerusalem. And the reason I'm split between Ireland and Jerusalem is that the Celtic culture was Jewish. It was not the culture of the Picts. The Celtic culture was Jewish. Jacob, the patriarch Stone of Scone, is supposed to be under St. Edward's chair in Westminster Abbey, the basis for the British monarchy. My father was a British king. And so this is all kind of coming together again. And so that's where I can find hope, that the continuity of community and of community values and of the behavior of just getting along together, the behavior of peacemaking, of mediating disputes and conflicts can become popular again, which was 25 years ago. Conflict resolution was a big deal then, and it has disappeared. And we're back to faction fighting, and we're back to divide and conquer. Why? Because it's profitable. It's profitable for the guys with all the money. All right. So we have to deal with the fact that the Fed hoards all the money. We have to deal with the fact that the Bar Association believes that they can twist and dominate law and profiteer on creating legal problems for people. We have to confront the fact that the healthcare people are not caring for our health. They're profiteering on visits, procedures, and tests. We have to confront the fact that our representatives who are paid by industry, that's their campaign contributions, represent the corporations that pay them, not the people who are in their constituencies. These matters have to be confronted openly, and we can do it on the internet, and so let's do it. And if the younger generations who think that life ought to be free and cheap and easy, if the younger generations who don't have a vocabulary to speak except in the terms of a verbal salad, they don't have the vocabulary to discuss civil issues, well, that's not my fault. Okay, I was a teacher and I taught group communication, and we taught problem solving to large groups of people, 20 to 40 at a time. And so whatever quackademia has decided to do since the 90s, I don't know, but they need to get their heads turned around straight, and the church needs to start being useful for something besides, there's nothing crazier than doing the same thing over and over and over and over and expecting a different result. Well, the church has been doing the same thing over and over for about 500 years, and they need to get a grip too. So we have work to do, and that's what I'm thinking about. How do we clear off the desk and talk to my friends who come here, and some of you subscribe, and some of you find my books interesting, and some of you comment, and some of you are taking an interest in the fact that we no longer have a civil governance where family is coherent, community fits, family fits in community, and community fits in region, and region fits in the world. Those scales are not discussed. The ways of exchanging value are not discussed. The ways of financing new ideas are not discussed. Oh my goodness. We have a big job in front of us, and I keep sending my claim to the Queen's Bench at the Inns of Court in Britain, because the royals in Britain just aren't doing anything about any of this. They just, my father's family just don't simply give a shit. Okay, they're busy being rich. And I don't see any purpose in being rich at my age. I mean, what in the world would I do with a fortune or riches at this time in my life? This is the time to get rid of it all and give it all away. And so I come and I rant at you, my friends, and I hope I'm making some sense, and let me know if I am, okay? I really appreciate your encouragement. when you hit the like button, or just when you view my videos. That's a pat on the back for me. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.